For today's video, I actually just wanted to kind of talk about work, so maybe a bit less based on research than some of the other videos, but sharing something of my experience of working, which can be tricky for all sorts of reasons and great in others, but yeah, just thought I'd share some of my ideas and tie that into some of the things that came up when I was doing my research for my dissertation. So I'll just share a couple of statistics that I found out when I was doing that research about autism and work, because autism has the second highest unemployment rate among disabilities in the UK, which I kind of found surprising. The only disability that has a high level of unemployment are people with severe or specific learning difficulties. And the difference between that and people who are autistic isn't really that big. So while the latest employment rate for autistic people was 29% in 2021, for people with any disability it's up at 53%, and for non-disabled people at 81%. So there's a really big difference, and I found that statistic kind of surprising. And another study, which looked largely at people who'd been diagnosed with autism in adulthood, found that although more than half of the people interviewed had a university degree, and just under a quarter had a master's degree as well, over 53% of them were overeducated for either their longest held job or their current job at the time of the interview. So when I think about work, I also try and think about what makes jobs like mine more difficult for autistic people, but also what stops autistic people from moving up in their jobs to higher levels, so that they end up being kind of really overeducated for the jobs that they're doing. And there's many reasons why that could lead to kind of situations where actually those jobs aren't very fulfilling. I think we really have to think about this. I work in education, I work with students, and I think what's the point of us supporting autistic students to get through school and achieve really well if then they're still going to have these massive barriers that stop them from actually having a fulfilling and a meaningful way to access the job market, and also provide for themselves in the future. So yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting thing to think about it, and I thought I'd share some of my experiences, I guess, of working. I am overeducated for the position that I'm currently in, and this is the only actual job I've ever had. I've had a few weekend jobs during sixth form and stuff, with a very kind person in the village, but counting proper jobs since my degrees, this is the only job I've had. But I have got 3 master's degrees, and I'm still doing kind of an entry-level position that I started in 4 years ago. My job has changed a lot since then, and I've been able to kind of, with my employer, shape the kind of job that I'm doing, and that's been really good for me to be able to stay in it. But there isn't any career progression from this job without becoming a teacher, and I would hate being a teacher. I genuinely know that I would just it would destroy me, and I really like my job, I do, and there are some things that I find difficult about my job, but working alongside young people who are struggling in school and being able to support them to make massive achievements over time is something that I find really, really rewarding. And also I find it so much easier to talk to children and teenagers than I do to adults, so that also kind of fits my skills as well. But I'm now in my late 20s, and I know that I've only been able to stay in this job and stay living where I am because my husband has a much better paying job than I do. And to stay in that position forever just doesn't seem desirable to me. I feel like I could do more, but the typical jobs and the typical career pathways just don't seem to fit me. And I look at them and I'm I just don't know how I'm supposed to move into a place where actually I can get that recognition of the skills and the work that I'm doing, and that value that the work I'm doing, but also be paid a reasonable amount to do that. And then it makes me think about my students who, many of them don't have the things that allowed me to kind of coast through on good academic skills, family support, and of course money. I had lots of things in my background that have really helped me get to where I am. And what I really want to see is a study that asks kind of autistic adults, what are the things that you struggle with at work, and why do you think that that either you don't have a job at the moment, or why do you think that a conventional job or one at the level that you would expect to be given your education, why is that out of reach for you? But I haven't found a study like that yet, so I don't really know what needs to change so that my students can feel fully included in adult job markets or whatever later in their lives. So if anyone does know of any research like that, then let me know in the comments. And I'll happily do a summary in another video, but I just kind of feel like what is going on here to make it so impossible for many autistic people to have kind of conventional jobs, or jobs that use their skills, their often like their specific strengths, and use them in fulfilling ways. So yeah, maybe I'll just give a little bit of a summary of the day, I guess. But I thought I'd just try and give a glimpse of what a typical day for me looks like when I do have work, as that is most of the days in the year. Obviously, a lot of what I do isn't pictured, especially a lot of what I do at school, because it's with students. And I also had to stay after work to show you the kinetic sand and the Play-Doh, which are two of my students' kind of favourite sensory activities. So everything was a lot calmer and quieter than I suppose my days usually are, or that's how it appears in the video. But yeah, I usually do some emails, some planning. I teach social skills classes to groups of like up to 15 students, and then the majority of my time is in one-to-one sessions with students where we'll talk about school and well-being, emotions, friendships, resilience, executive skills, communication skills, issues with teachers, any difficulties with lessons that they might have, any anxiety, and so on, stuff like that. I like to use a lot of visuals in these sessions, and we'll often use like multiple methods of communication, such as like writing and drawing. We'll maybe do some comic strip stuff. We'll use colours, and we'll do talking. Yeah, these sessions are kind of what I love the most in my job. It means I really get to know kind of each student that I work with, and we find ways together to kind of support their needs and help them to grow in school. Yeah, it's really nice to see the differences that it makes kind of along a period of time. Yeah, and then I didn't really do much when I got home in the evening. This was actually my first week back after being off sick for a week, so I was definitely trying to kind of take it easy, because usually I have a tendency to think like I'm better, and so I suddenly try and do everything, and then I end up becoming even more sick than I was before, which actually might be because I don't really pick up signals from my body very easily, so it's really hard for me to know like how much I can do. But yeah, I have to think very consciously about it now, because my husband pointed out that it just kept happening. And so when I got home, I just watched the last episode of Rings of Power, which I really enjoyed. It was so aesthetically pleasing, and like I thought the storylines fitted together so nicely, and like the bends in the road, they were fun to go down. So yeah, I'd watched the first 7 episodes in like 2 days while I was off sick, so I had to finish that. And then we probably cooked and ate dinner. I don't really enjoy cooking at the moment. I don't know why. I used to really enjoy it. But yeah, at the moment, not really. So I always want to do the most basic thing. But me and my husband do it together, so it's not too bad. We kind of bulk cook, so we don't have to do it every night. We just eat the same thing for 4 days. But yeah, and then after dinner, I just did some of my journaling, which you'll see in the video. Yeah, I find it really relaxing to go back and check kind of how the day went at the end. At the moment, I'm trialing getting into the habit of like a Hobonichi weekly and daily spread on my iPad. I'm planning to use them next year for the first time, and so far my test run has been going okay, but I don't think I've quite set it up don't think I've quite set all of it up quite how I want yet. But yeah, I mean, maybe I can include a video or put it in my next one about like how I use that, how I plan. Because I feel like when I plan well, my days tend to go a lot better. I like planning. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, if you have any questions from today's video about my job or work in general or journaling or TV, then feel free to put them in the comments below. And if there's a few, maybe I could do a little Q&A video. That would be kind of cute. But yeah, let me know what you want to see like more of or less of, and let me know how you find work. Are you working right now? Would you call it a typical job, or do you also fit slightly differently into that whole system? Yeah, I'd love to hear what some of you guys are doing. So yeah, and if you like this sort of thing, then maybe hit subscribe, and you can sometimes see more. Take care.